intros are annoying. There's me saying hello even though you know it's me and you're watching this cause you know what's coming, but not mentioning it seems impolite. Hell, let's just get on with it. The true history of the Kelly gang claims to give us the real events behind the Australian rebel and villain Ned Kelly, who went into infamy with his homemade armor in which he braved armed gunmen hunting for him. The first part of the movie follows the boy's young life and how he was raised. Charlie Hunnam and Russell Crowe paint an interesting picture of this young boy's life until, all of a sudden, we're thrust forward many years in the future and are dropped in some kind of late 70s punk movie. Whereas the first half is clearly a western set in the mid-1800s of Australia, the second half feels and looks disjointed and could very well be set in the beginning of the 80s United Kingdom. The change is so jarring it feels like a different movie. Add to this the weird surrealistic and artsy effect in some scenes and you get a film that wants to be too many things at the same time and fails to become something in the end. McQuaid is fine as Ned Kelly as far as I can tell, but the sudden removal of Crowe and Hunnam makes the difference even more jarring. I think the movie would have been better if there was a slightly less jarring change between Kelly's childhood years and later years, or just a complete split between the two eras as a double feature. As it stands, I can't recommend the true history of Ned Kelly, and definitely not as something that is, as the title claims, true. Check that. Joel Kinnaman plays a released Polish mobster who is undercover for the FBI with his crew in order to get his boss, the general, arrested for drug dealing. Due to an undercover cop, he gets entangled in a push-and-pull game between the FBI, the LAPD, his family, the Polish mob and several factions that wish to kill him. The Informer is an interesting crime movie that delves into the not-so-often used Polish mob and shows a nice scala of trainers and gold chains. The plot doesn't offer much new, but it's a refreshing take on a prison drama/crime story nevertheless, with the always great Joel Kinnaman. The Informer doesn't reinvent the wheel but like most Netflix movies these days, leave an open ending for a sequel or a series and is a good popcorn movie on a slow night. Check that. Legendary Chuck Norris's lone wolf McQuaid, a no-nonsense Texas Ranger who works alone and isn't afraid to skirt the rules of the law to get his arrests. He encounters the equally legendary David Carradine, who plays a ruthless gun runner who, thanks to his lovely companion, gets too close to Chuck not to go into a full-blown fight. Throw in a young Robert Chicote Beltram as an underused rookie sidekick and you get a semi-kung fu, semi-buddy cop, semi-hard-boiled Dirty Harry type movie that is quite enjoyable and well done. If you can look past the cheese and the fact Norris would play a similar character decades later uttering the dreadful words. In the eyes of a ranger, every episode you get a good 1983 action movie that is worth a watch. Check that. Things Heard and Seen gives us a couple who just moved into a haunted house and the woman of the house, played by Amanda Seyfried, quickly realizes something is wrong. Things get even more dangerous when the husband gets involved with one of his not-so-students and stir both the woman and the ghosts into action. Things Heard and Seen is a typical scary movie but quickly loses track of what it wants to be. The start of the movie makes illusions of being a satanic flick, which quickly turns into a possible possession movie, changes into a ghost story, reverts back and forth to seance and possession, and finally ends up being neither into some weird semi-supernatural mumbo-jumbo ending. Things Heard and Seen isn't exciting, isn't scary, is way too tame on the sexy, and quite frankly doesn't bring anything special to the table. It's like eating bland oatmeal. It fills the stomach but it's bland, tasteless and a whole bowl of nothing. Drop that. Electric Dreams takes us back to the 80s at the dawn of home computers and shows us Miles Harding, played by Lenny Von Dolen, who is eerily similar to Lee Pace's character in the excellent Halt and Catch Fire, who brings home a computer to help him be on time for his job. He promptly spills champagne on his new PC, which turns the computer sentient, right at the moment that a cute woman, played by Virginia Madsen, moves in next to him. Electric Dreams is a delightful movie with an amazing soundtrack and a whole lot of heart. The quirky nature of our main character bouncing off the unknown world of the computer finding sentience and the love story with Madsen is fun and endearing. The music, playing an important part in the story, is equally fun and fills the movie with joy and pleasure. Electric Dreams is a love story, but not one of these sappy ones. It's full of heart and an awkward nerd's dream. Go watch it. Your soul will thank you. Smash that. The Outpost is the true story of a bunch of American soldiers that get stuck in a military base in Afghanistan that try to cope in an indefensible position surrounded by a community with whom the tensions rise more and more with every passing minute. We experience the brotherly band of these people as they struggle with the day-to-day, the army rules and everything else that comes with it. And then, shit hits the fan and we experience a grueling half-hour of action, despair and manly men fighting for their life. And the great thing, besides the cast, the visuals, the acting, the characters, it actually happened. The Outpost isn't an original movie as it takes the Alamo trope of a small group of people defending against an incredible force. From 1964's Zulu, March of Die and others, The Outpost is a tense, nail-baiting war movie with enough adrenaline and brotherly bond to make it a captivating watch. Smash that. Spacehunter, Adventures in the Forbidden Zone is a cheesy science fiction movie where a gruff manly adventurer and bounty hunter attempts to rescue 3 shipwrecked women who were kidnapped by the evil dictator Overdog. He encounters Nikki, one of the last Earthlings, who forces herself into the mission and becomes Wolf's sidekick. Together they take up arms and learn to appreciate each other like one of those delightful buddy cop movies. Unfortunately, Spacehunter is a fairly forgettable movie with some unfortunate decisions that prove to be utterly hilarious and cringeworthy when they appear on screen. Spacehunters is a forgettable movie without anything special happening. The acting is cheesy and the overall tone of it feels like a B-movie. It's not sexy, it's not exciting enough, the effects, if any, are neglectable and the plot is too simple. A missed opportunity. Drop that. Wrath of Man is a Jason Statham action flick where he plays a character who becomes a security driver for a major cash truck firm. As the film progresses, we get revealed what most viewers would have guessed from the beginning of the story. Wrath of Man is an enjoyable action movie but gets a little bit bogged down with the trope where they replay previous events in order to get to the conclusion of the movie. When we finally get the conclusion and the ultimate confrontation, it's over in a minute and fizzles into nothingness. The movie is also not helped by the fact that the protagonist ends up to be an extremely highly skilled person with almost no flaws whatsoever. And those movies have been a dime in a dozen these days. From John Wick to nobody. Wrath of Man is just one of those. Check that. Classroom dramas with inspirational teachers educating hard-headed students and bringing them to new heights is a genre in itself, and most of these movies scratch that same itch off the underdog rising to glory, offering that feel-good sensation we all want to experience. In this movie, Edward James Olmos plays Jamie Escalante, who stops his well-paying job as a computer teacher to teach math in a public high school where gangs and dropouts are rampant. We follow his class as they go from a rowdy bunch to one filled with good grades and hard effort. All thanks to the inspiration Escalante gives and the no-nonsense way of teaching. What follows is an endearing story of the Latino class fighting against the grain with removing cliché elements of the gang culture and avoiding certain pit traps other movies of this ilk fell into. In comparison with others of this genre, I would consider Stand and Deliver as being a slightly elevated version of a TeeVee movie, without the bombastic extremes of others. A feel-good movie that will have you smiling at the end and will give you hope for humanity in the future with an excellent cast. Smash that. A group of college students want to change the world and go on a trip to stop an indigenous tribe from being eradicated due to illegal foresting in the Brazilian rainforests. Upon arriving there with the group of naive students and shady organizers, things go wrong and they get picked off one by one. The second you realize this movie was made by Eli Roth, you know what you are gonna get. And it's not good. Copied pretty much from the horror classic Cannibal Holocaust, this movie doesn't give you anything new. It's crass, it's empty, it's soulless. The gore is predictable and the inclusion of weird humor in the movie is a little bit disconcerting. For some reason the movie also tries to convey a message to the viewer which completely backfires even with the inclusion of the extremely out of touch and weird ending they, most likely, had to put in there to avoid even more controversy. Movies like Cannibal Holocaust and many others that were banned during its making or were unapologetic and very dark glimpses into the dark and deprived parts of humanity. Drop that.